Welcome back to another episode of Hard Money Dispatch, a show that demystifies sound money and helps you see the system for what it is. Today's guest is Roland Hobbs. He is the CEO and co-founder of Stake. Stake provides cash back for renters and is building a renter network. Roland, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So to start off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to focus on the financial challenges that renters face?
Yeah, this is my third startup, and where I started with a lot of work in the loyalty world, and in financial services. So generally, you think about loyalty as points. You know, you're getting points on credit cards or this sort of thing. But what has happened more and more is that that points world is getting more diluted. Points are deflationary. You know, they can always change what they are, and so I worked with Capital One very early days on their cashback approach. And I was really intrigued by this because you see these numbers of just how much home ownership is becoming harder and for renters, and just saving becomes harder. So not even is like maybe affording a home is a long way off, but just being able to build savings. So average American renter has less than $500 in savings. So where we kind of began was how can we help renters build more wealth and build savings? And so we built this cashback network for renters where they can earn cash back from their property, from brands, even now from governments. We just launched Colorado Renter Rewards. So it's a lot of folks who are helping renters build savings.
Very nice. Sounds like an interesting idea. Capital One does have some pretty good cashback rewards options.
Yeah, the what's in your wallet originally is cash. That's what it originally meant, but now it means everything. But it's it's like what's in your wallet? Is there money actually there or not? So they're really innovative on how to be able to help people build savings.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a probably a brand new idea to a lot of people, and rent is usually people's largest monthly expense. But in the past, there's really been no way to leverage that to build any kind of financial progress. Why do you think things have turned out that way?
So I think there's a number of things that are working against renters. Let's kind of go like macro view, going back 20, 30 years is after the financial collapse, you have a boom of building but there's less home construction, more rental construction. So literally the prices of homes just get higher. You get to 2020 and you have COVID. Inflation starts to hit. It becomes even harder for folks to be able to own a home, and then rent prices go up. So for a homeowner, they experience an average about 15% inflation, but for renters, they've experienced 30 to 50% inflation because of how much that rent has gone up in that time period. So you're kind of fighting on two fronts as a renter. One, it's hard to be able to save, but two, just your costs are going up every single month. So it's at a rate that's going to make it harder to save. I think a huge element that's kind of behind this as well is that we haven't found new financial innovation like we did originally with mortgages. So you think like after World War II, GIs come back, we have to have a way to build a bunch of housing. So, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are created to be able to create mortgages to fund all that. We don't have a mechanism today to be able to help the large majority of renters build savings, and 1 out of 3 Americans rent. So we really need new financial innovation to be able to help people build savings. It's not gonna happen on its own. It's gonna have to be something that we need to be able to build a whole coalition around.
Interesting. That reminds me, I have an interesting renting story myself, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on it if you know anything about this aspect of this whole renting system. But what happened to me just a few years ago was I had this apartment and it was great. I loved a great management, great area, great price, everything. And then all of a sudden, they were going to raise my rent by about 6 or 7%. And then I happened to look at what the other units were being rented out for. And the one literally like right behind me that was identical in every way was being listed for I think 3 or 400 less than what they were gonna charge me for new
Yeah.
renters. So a new tenant gets a way
This
better
is just
deal.
an anti loyalty, I think, is what that is. That's like actually penalizing the people who have been loyal to the property.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. And when I asked them about it, I talked to the property manager at that property who I expected would be the person to go to and could help me out in some way. And she said there was nothing she could do. That's just how it is because uh, their pricing is controlled by a third party algorithm. So apparently, some of these properties, people who own them contract out. It used to be that it was just supply and demand. Like if there were fewer people, less demand for rental units, people they would have to lower the prices to attract more tenants, and vice versa. When there's more demand, they can raise rents. But now a lot of properties are apparently contracting with some company that's developed some software that just and they tell them, look, don't worry about your occupancy rates. That's not a factor. We'll make sure that you stay profitable as long as you do exactly what our algorithm tells you in terms of pricing.
Yep.
And so the demand supply thing, it comes secondary apparently to whatever this algorithm says. And apparently the algorithm was telling them one thing. There was less demand because rents the last few years here in the Salt Lake Valley and Salt Lake City, rents have actually come down quite substantially, like the most since 2020 for sure, maybe the most in a while. So their new units were going for way less, whereas they're somehow raising rent on existing tenants. Maybe that's just the standard, what they do. I have no idea. And long story short, I was completely powerless in this
Yep.
situation. Talked to a
Did you
family
have to move
member.
out, or did you just get a friend to sign a new lease in that property at a lower rate for you?
That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking, well, I have a few options. I could just move out, or I could do what you suggested. I could just move out and then, wait, get a hotel room for a day and then go and sign up again. And then that would be it, get a new lease for the same place. But I was, I didn't want to support that property anymore because I was so furious
That's
at
it.
this
I mean,
concept.
that's it. Yeah. And look, when there's some just really interesting things behind this on the AI side. Department of Justice got involved in this as well. Some states are starting to legislate on the AI side. I think what's happened is there's the way that normally you think about revenue management and loyalty together in other industries. Let's take like airlines or hotels. Starwood Preferred Guest was the big innovator in this, where they didn't see just price going up as the only lever that they had for revenue management. They saw price and promotion. Right. So you want to be able to, in airlines, you want to keep your best customers, the ones who are business travelers who travel the most, so you're optimizing your loyalty for being able to get your business travelers. What's happened in residential real estate and rentals is that they're thinking about it as just price, just maximizing for price, and they're not maximizing on promotion or revenue. So let's just, in that situation, you move out, there is real impact on that. As an example, now they have to be able to lease that place for less, right? They have turn costs. They're going to be add to that, which are expensive, usually about 1 month of rent, usually about 1 month of rent to be able to release. And this environment could be two. So they could be losing 3 months of rent, even before you're looking on days on market of how long it takes to be able to get that apartment filled. So this AI is not working well, I think either for the property, nor is it working well for the renter. So where we kind of think about it this way, which is it can work on both sides. Like we're bringing that second heat, that promotion, the cash back, where you say, well, why don't we offer cash back for the renewal? And why don't we factor that into, we want to be able to keep people in the home. And yes, you want to be able to manage price long term. It's a for-profit business. They want to be able to manage price longer term, but just getting the note pushed under the door that says 7% increase and no thank you on it, is just not what consumers expect right now. So we have 550,000 homes in our network. I think that the properties who work with us see this as the challenge right now. How do you use promotion and cash back and loyalty to drive revenue outcomes and at the same time not completely tick off your residents?
Was the moment where you kind of had this epiphany that there was an opportunity here to sort of change how rent fits into people's financial picture?
So yeah, well, we always had the mission of accelerating renter wealth. We wanted to create renter wealth. Our first idea was to blockchain buildings and give equity to renters. So we had this kind of like, really advanced idea of like, why don't we just give the renters like a piece and, of the ownership in the building? And there's a lot of challenges with that, which I can talk about from just a regulatory standpoint. But let's just say you could wave a magic wand and do it. I was interested in, would renters want that? Like, would they care? So in New York, I became a broker. I showed a lot of apartments to more or less, I wasn't a great broker, pretty bad, but I wanted to be able to learn what renters would respond to. If I said like, hey, in this building, you could get equity, would you lease here? And universally, we couldn't move the needle. It didn't get more people signing leases in that apartment. And we were trying to figure out why. Like, it's a pretty good offer, right? Like, hey, you're going to pay your rent, you're going to get something back. It's going to, you can and have that as an investment longer term. And one dude said it to me. He was just like, it's just the money, stupid. Like, I only care about the money. Like, I'm really tight and I just care about what I'm signing, similar to you, where 6, 7% is going to matter, right? It's material. And just like all of us were shopping on price, and the equity was like a later consideration. When you realize how much the affordability and choosing on prices is important to folks, then it changes your whole mentality, and we move to a cashback. Kind of imagine it like this. When we search for a hotel, we go on booking.com or Hotel Tonight or Expedia or comparison pricing. If you're looking at that one apartment and you go to the building, you go to apartments.com, you go to apartment list, they're all the same price. There's no discount. There's no better deal to find. So what we try to do is be able to create that deal for renters so that when people are looking, they're tight on cash. And just today we announced this acquisition of a brokerage. So we're now offering $200 cash back minimum on every apartment that folks can move into. And it's making a big difference because people will just say like, I want the cash. And then you can go from there on what you offer. We offer a lot more than just cash back, but we had to shift from this kind of equity mentality to a like, I need the money now. What's in my wallet mentality.
Very nice. That's interesting. I may be in the minority that would have been interested in the equity because I like to rent for the purpose that I like to invest whatever savings I have elsewhere and earn on that instead of just building equity in a home. Maybe one day I'll do both, but right now it just doesn't uh, make sense to me. I feel like that's for everyone, millennials, Gen Z, and younger, that's just been pushed forward for 90% of people
Well,
because
you guys have already been sold. Like, I'm Gen X, so, but I think that more so for millennials and Gen Z, they've already been sold a high debt product on student loans. So it's like, right, like before it was like, oh, you had no really high debt and then you got a home and that's where the interest would come from. You're like, wait, it's 30 years. But you're already in a situation where at 18, it's like, well, we are going to put you into debt at age 18. And so obviously that's going to push it out, along with a lot of other considerations. I think what's interesting is that the cashback can be the beginning of what's kind of being called tenant equity. So Colorado has launched a program that does cashback when you pay rent. They match that cash back if you keep it saved. And then they're also giving you what's the equivalent of like profit dividends from the fund that's buying the properties as well. So renters in those in the Colorado Renter Rewards and also another fund called the Renter Wealth Creation Fund do this thing of what if we kind of treated this more like a forced savings approach where if you chose to keep the money saved, we'll keep on giving you more. And then as the property makes some profit, we'll reward you for staying by giving you some of that profit back. And that kind of reaches in both groups. Somebody like you who wants to be able to really manage savings longer term and to be really savvy with it, or has the opportunity to do it, and the person who's like, I'm struggling to pay groceries right now. I need the cash to be able to do that. So it can meet both those groups.
very nice. So you've gone through some of the mechanics of what's involved. How does it actually work in practice? Like if someone's just moving into an apartment or they've been renting the same place for a while, how do they benefit from Stakes Cashback? What do they do?
Yeah. So all of our properties are in our network. So there's 550,000 homes, or you're searching for a property through our brokerage, which is called You Move Free. So if you're coming in and you're signing a new lease, you're going to start with cash back that's going to be sitting in the stake account. That stake account has multiple different services. The cashback that's sitting there, we report your on-time payments to the 3 credit bureaus so that you can improve your credit with on-time rent payments. And then we give you full banking services as well. So you can actually bank with us and earn more cash back. You can connect any Visa, debit, or American Express card and earn cash back in over 10,000 brands. So there's a lot of ways to be able to earn, and there's a lot of ways to bank and save with us. And there's a lot of ways to be able to build credit. So we kind of start with the top of the spear of like, hey, you got cash, but let's not stop there. Let's find all the ways to help a renter save. And that's why we think about it as like a network that's helping renters. A lot of folks coming together to say, almost like a Costco for renters, right? Like, hey, here's a group that has a very specific concern on affordability. You can get them as a great customer if you help them save. So in that experience, renters and earn that cash back. They can withdraw at any time. They can bank with us. They can spend in the network to earn more, and then we offer really unique deals to folks on like utilities and rental insurance and this sort of thing as well. Yeah, come in stake.rent, and you can see apartments that you can rent directly with us, or then the properties offer it directly as well themselves. So we have a network where you can find directly with us, or properties offer it. So the example of the renewal, a property may say, "Hey, if you renew with us, we're going to offer you, $50 in cash back to start, but you can earn up to $3,000 a year through the stake network." So they'll offer it to their renters as well.
Okay. And stake ties incentives to behaviors like on time payments or lease renewals. What have you learned about how these incentives influence renter behavior?
Yeah, so we've gone through kind of three crazy moments in just the last 5 years. The first was COVID, right? So when I was showing those apartments, like that was right before COVID, and then COVID hit. In COVID, there was a rent moratorium. Renters in many areas didn't have to pay the rent because it was said like, hey, it's COVID. We're going to put a moratorium. You don't have to pay. But that really hurt landlords because they need the payments. So we had to prove that giving cash back to pay rent worked as a carrot rather than a stick. So we built a full system to measure that, kind of think about like a Google Analytics for rental incentives. Is it $2 or is it $30? It's going to work in this particular community to get somebody to pay rent on time. So we built a whole algorithm to be able to help figure out what is the cash back amount to be able to give to be able to change outcomes. Then delinquency went away and rent prices were rip roaring, as we talked about. They're going up a lot. But where the challenge was, it's very interesting because you were in that position. We could have helped that property is on renewals. Prices are going up, but we want to keep people. So how much do you give to be able to get somebody to stay? And now we're doing a lot more leasing incentives. So we call it Loyalty Cloud. What's sitting behind us is um, it's a promotion engine that helps property managers figure out how much cash to give to change behavior. And kind of like the tools that Starwood had, now Marriott has, to be able to figure out how to be able to keep those business travelers. We're taking that same tech and giving it to property owners.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, and just to backtrack a bit, I realized uh, I didn't quite finish what happened with my story when all that stuff
Yeah.
was happening. I wound up, uh, just researching other deals because I spoke with my family member who's a lawyer. I was like, "Can I sue them for this? Because this is pissing me off. It's a form of discrimination, right?" It turns out after talking about it, he's like, "Well, under these conditions, yeah, technically you could, but is this really a fight you want? You may have 50-50 odds of winning at best. Just move out, but it's up to you." And so I just researched things, found another place that was 200 square feet bigger, extra bedroom, better area for only $100 more a month than what they were going to charge me anyway. So yeah, I just wound up moving out at a time when I had not been planning on it, but it worked out to my advantage actually somehow. So
Yeah, well, it's short-sighted on the property side, and I think that they're starting to be able to shift, but it's this challenge of where AI is getting deployed purely by thinking of a property and the asset. And most innovations in the last 30 years have worked in a different way. You think about Amazon. If Amazon had built for the asset, they never would have become as big. They were customer obsessed, right? Like they focused on and Wall Street thought that they were crazy when they offered free shipping, which is a loyalty move. They at the time they were like, "This is nuts." If you look at how much Amazon spends on free shipping, it's massive. Huge spend on free shipping, but obviously it pays off for them with Amazon Prime because you get people coming back. So I think there's a mentality shift that has to happen. That's the reason why rentals are so interesting, is that they're still very asset based. They're not very customer based. And so I think the experience that you had there is a really perfect example of just the property missing the opportunity, to be able to keep somebody and still be able to make money doing it.
definitely. Okay. So on the operator side, you've built tools like StakePay to help housing operators improve payment predictability. What problems are property managers trying to solve today?
So I mentioned the delinquency side, and there's still a big challenge of like renters who are in arrears, especially post COVID. And so the option is either, eviction, but eviction is expensive, and in many situations, the courts can be really backed up. So it's always better if you can help a renter be able to get back on track or incentivize them to be able to get back on track. So these are kind of behavioral changes that happen. Like COVID kind of shifted the behavior of paying on time. You didn't have to for a bit, how to get people back. Um, Second, I think with stake pay, we're also, from the renter standpoint, 80% of renters will miss their rent for under $100. So just think about that. Like they say the rent's 1,000, which it isn't in most places. It's averaged about 1,800. But say 1,000, and you're going to miss by $100. Why is that? Well, the property doesn't want to take partial payment, because if they take partial payment, they can't take you to court to evict. So if a renter only has $900, they cannot send the $900 for their $1,000 payment. Whereas other things you might be like, okay, I send the 900 and I'm going to send the $100 in a week, if you're tight on money. So we do a lot of work to be able to help renters in that situation. And when you're managing a bank and you're banking with them, we can actually see that challenge and then be, hey, here's some products that can help you with that gap. So from the property standpoint, it's arrears, it's delinquency, it's a lot of being able to make sure the collections are happening and you're collecting well. And then on the renter side, it can be tools to be able to help you make your rent payment and make sure that you're staying current.
Okay, so you have tools like, for example, I've seen options to um, pay your rent, split it up into two payments or that type of thing, flexible options.
We take a little different approach. There's certainly groups like Flex and others. Another loyalty program built has a credit card, so you're kind of naturally shifting your rent 30 days. The challenge with both of those is that you're fundamentally looking at a very high interest rate. So even when you're not getting an interest rate that they're publishing, but you're paying a monthly fee, or you're putting on your credit card. If you pay it off on the credit card, no problem, but a lot of folks don't, right? They'll let it roll, and then you're looking at 24% interest rates. So what we do is we take more of a banking approach. So it's more of what we think of as a way to be able to get renters to like an overdraft protection, right? So instead of it being there's no interest, it is something that you still have to qualify for if you've been making good rent payments. But we can see like, hey, you have a paycheck coming in 3 days. No big deal. We can front you that money because you have a paycheck coming in. We make our money in there through deposits as a banking as a service approach. So it really becomes something that is more win-win, I have it. I bank with, Silicon Valley Bank as a founder. If I happen to overdraft by $200, they're not shutting my account and charging me $150, right? Like they're going to be like, we know you have a check coming in. Maybe I'll get a call from my wealth manager saying like, hey, could you get that sorted? But they're not going to collapse everything down. Renters haven't had that sort of access because banks haven't been built for them. So what we've done is we built a bank for them. The better that they're doing, if they're paying their rent on time, the more we can help them in those moments without charging them huge interest.
Very helpful to a lot of people. And also, don't forget that when you pay rent with a credit card, you also have the 3% transaction fee that goes on top of that.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's funny is because Built has been trying to say like, oh, you don't get that 3%, but they just brought it back, so it's really hard to get out of it because it's literally written into the congressional laws, right? Like there's that 3% is going to be there. And that's a pretty high cost to have to be able to pay on, if it's a $2,500 rent or whatever it might be, to be able to time shift to 30 days. But if you're banking and we know, and you hook up direct deposit with us, and so we know where your paycheck's coming from, it becomes a lot easier to be able to underwrite and be like, it's good. We see that the money's coming in, and rent's due on the 1st, your paycheck comes in on the 1st. There can be these moments of just kind of slight money movement where you know that the money's coming in, but you can't send it out in that moment. So for a bank can manage that.
Here's an interesting question. How do you balance building this type of thing that creates value for renters while also working for property owners and operators?
Yeah, we're 80% of our revenue comes from property owners. So in a similar way to say Airbnb, its community is a community of hosts, right? And then guests stay there. So there's in this situation, I don't think it's even two-sided. It's a community. Real estate has traditionally worked in kind of the zero sum, like if renters win, landlords lose. But that has never been true in loyalty, right? Like loyalty has always worked actually with a win-win mentality. If I can keep that business traveler and incentivize them, the business does better as well. So Loyalty Cloud and a lot of the work that we've done to build up like ways to measure how much to give and make sure the business is still performing and the NOI for the property still improving. That's what we're really good at doing. But You don't have to be able to spend as a property owner as well with us. You can just plug into our network, and brands, our bank, government still want to be able to help that renter. So that's where the network comes in. So we're really building this win-win approach. We don't think of it as an either or. We really think about it kind of going to that Amazon standpoint of like, you can do well for the customer and still be able to create really incredible wins for the business. You just have to be able to measure it.
All right, sounds good. Now, when you zoom out, how do you see these types of financial products for renters evolving over the next uh, decade or so?
Gosh, well, I think the first thing is that I think you're going to start seeing more kind of renter coin situation come in, where if you're paying rent and this sort of thing, there's going to be more innovation around that, kind of going back to that equity idea. There's going to be more innovation there. I think that there's still a lot of regulatory hurdles that are going to have to be overcome, but if we're going out 10 years, I think there's going to be more of that. I think there's going to be more blending between how you pay rent, how you bank, and then how you build saving. So right now in DC, there's a huge housing bill. It's going to change a lot of how we're thinking about renting and the idea of institutional ownership, and when renters should be able to get a chance to be able to buy that home. And I think that's gonna shift things as well, and it's gonna move a lot of these financial innovations closer to the renter, and say we have to be able to help renters build savings. If I could wave a magic wand, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I would like it to happen, which is, we have a 401k for saving for retirement. We have 529s to save for education. These are tax-free savings accounts, that you can have. I would like for renters to be able to have that same thing. If they are saving as a renter, it should be a tax-free, put them on an even level with a homeowner. As a homeowner, I get to write off my interest. Renters don't get to do that. They're paying a higher rack rate just right out of the gate. If we can create a way to help them save, and especially even more incentives as they use that savings to buy a home, I think we can start having that financial innovation that happened in the 50s with mortgages. So that'd be my waving the magic wand dream. But a lot of things need to happen. But we're getting closer. It's funny, and both sides of the aisle are actually kind of talking about it in the same way now around renter affordability. So you might see the extremes connect in the horseshoe.
If Stake succeeds at scale and keeps adding properties to their network and all the things you just mentioned continue making progress, what do you think that would lead to things looking like in the near term, long term future?
Look, I think that this idea of the network is what we want. Membership, like in Costco or Amazon, more people are Amazon Prime members and voted in the last election. I kind of think about the future of membership for renters. It's one of the three Americans who rent. And if the more that we can get renters into this membership, the more buying power we get for the renter, right? The more influence that we can have to be able to get better renter insurance, utility costs, shopping, it's a massive group and growing and staying longer, right? People are renting for longer, either by choice or by necessity. So where I see kind of longer term is I think that membership becomes influential in the same way like an Amazon or a Costco can be influential in terms of being able to get incredible deals for their members. From the government side, I was mentioning this kind of 401k. Let's call it an 805k for renters. I think that would be, I think we can get there with things like Colorado doing Colorado Renter Awards, and more in the pipeline or to come like this. I think there's going to be more focus on how do we innovate to help renters save and just get a better financial deal.
Amazing. Where are you guys? Are you guys kind of clustered, having more properties in some states or others? Are you in all 50 states, or how's that working?
We're national. Our rental brokerage is in Texas, so if you're searching for a home, Texas, we can get you directly into a home. But we have apartments in every state, so that's kind of part of the network. As an example, in Colorado, it'd be coming through properties that offer Colorado Renter Awards. It can happen through our property partners, or it can happen through our brokerage. So we're nationwide, 150,000 homes, and we've given $50 million in cash back to date.
Nice. Okay, Roland. So, how can people get in touch with you or learn more about Stake?
Yeah, so visit Get Your Stake, and it's STAKE, not the meat. So getyourstake.com to be able to check out the site. And you can always shoot me an email at Roland, it's a W in there. So ROWLAND at stake.rent. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So do reach out. I'm always happy to chat to folks who are always looking to be able to add more properties to the network, more brands to the network, more services to the network. I'm actually at a loyalty summit today, and chatting to a lot of brands about how they're going to join the network. We're interested in all types and if you're a renter, reach out as well. We'll see if we can find you a home with more cash back.
So that's going to do it for this episode of Hard Money Dispatch. Although we typically talk about Bitcoin and have Bitcoiners on, now let me do switch gears a little bit and have interesting entrepreneurs on, because if you want to be able to save in Bitcoin, you have to, of course, maximize your income in order to have anything to save in the first place. So I think it's a very important subject. I'd like to thank today's guest, Roland Hobbs, for everything he's shared and everything he's doing. And be sure to subscribe to the Hard Money Dispatch newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a like and subscribe. And if you're listening, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much.